Good morning is indeed a good morning, especially if you are a World of Warcraft or curious about World of Warcraft and you just don't have access to it. Because essentially World of Warcraft could end up being on your console sometime in the very near future. 2022 World of Warcraft creative director essentially said, nah, I think World of Warcraft is a game designed from the ground up for the PC platform. And essentially his focus was really just removing third-party UI from the game to make it so the game is more streamlined and add this to the game, and their focus on console was nowhere near what it is right now. However, at Blizzcon 2023, Josh West had spoke with Holly Longdale, who's the vice president and executive producer of World of Warcraft. And the tone completely changed. It's almost like something had happened in 2023 that made a really big impact to the business decisions that they're going to be making going forward. I wonder what it is. Well, considering one of her statements was, we're Microsoft now, could probably really lean toward where the decision making might be coming from. Now, when the question was prompted, are there conversations about World of Warcraft being entered into the console world? We've got these 3 expansions and we are so excited about them, but yeah, of course, it would be very insincere to say that we're not, like, of course talking about that. And she chuckled and said, we're Microsoft now. One of the major components of the acquisition is making sure that a lot of games get put on Game Pass. Now, on that note, Blizzard also has another subscription-based service, which is World of Warcraft. And console really seems to be missing out on this phenomenon, which is very strange because a lot of MMORPGs are landing on console. With these 3 expansions coming out very soon, I'd imagine their hands are probably tied, as Holly said. However, it does seem as if it will be a priority sometime in the near future, as they are having discussions about this. Holly goes on saying it's a complicated question, and to your earlier point, the console audience, the approachability is likely going to be different. And I think that the hurdles to this are going to be absolutely immense. They're really going to have to ramp up the World of Warcraft team to make sure that this game successfully gets ported into consoles when that day comes. I mean, the server integrations and making sure that the consoles in the future, then the dev kits in the future, because consoles are consistently changing and dev kits are always in need. However, it does look like a lot of modern MMORPGs make their console port very successful, but World of Warcraft is one of the more complicated MMORPGs on the market right now in terms of like accessibility for keybind. There are keyboard companies like Razer that are making Bluetooth keyboards that are accessible from consoles that you can actually put on your lap while you're on a couch or while you're just leisuring and you're not at a full-blown gaming setup. That are basically like trays for you that you can put a keyboard and mouse on your lap even if you're on a couch in front of a TV. But Xbox has been a little bit more strict about the hardware that you enter inside of your console. For example, you can't use third-party controllers anymore, like a Scuf or a Battle Beaver. You simply just have to use Xbox-born accessories, which is kind of whack. However, it's really refreshing to see executive leadership actually being enthusiastic about a console port for World of Warcraft very soon. In 2001, you could have never told me that a console port was possible for whatever console was out at that time. But World of Warcraft has actually been secretly ramping up for this for quite some time now. In 2016, there was a console command called Console Action Cam. Essentially, it would behave similar to pretty much any RPG game that you have that would have a toggle action for a controller. Essentially, it would lock you onto your enemy target. It essentially pans the camera for you as you strafe and move back and forth. Most people that play console games know exactly what I'm talking about, similar to like games like Elden Ring. And in 2016, when they did this, it kind of just screamed the idea that they were going to be doing this for a controller. Because essentially, if you're playing on mouse and keyboard, you can do all of these things with both of your hands and your whole arm. And everybody's speculations in 2016 came true because in 2020, they added native gamepad controller support, which addressed the question if you could use a controller at all. You can use a controller on World of Warcraft. However, it was a little bit chunky and it wasn't exactly the best version of it. You could use it. And it's native to the game, meaning that World of Warcraft and Blizzard addressed the fact that there's some sort of desire to play this game on controller for whatever reason. Now, in 2022, we did hear from the executive leadership that they were trying to focus on removing third-party software to make it so it's integrated into the game. And that's exactly what they did in 2020, previous to that interview. And moving forward into Dragonflight, more close to this time, they even added combat action, which essentially means wherever your character is facing, you will click into that target, which is very, very console RPG-esque in terms of combat. So no tabbing, no clicking, whatever is in front of you is going to be highlighted and that's what you're going to be attacking. There's no need to click to the left or tab over, actually just attack what's in front of you. And this behavior also got ported into the way that you behave and interact with NPCs, mailboxes, and anything that you could essentially press your F key on. And here's where things get really interesting and almost indefinitely point to the fact that World of Warcraft will get ported onto console. Before the Dragonflight expansion release, data miners had actually found all button icons for PlayStation and Xbox inside of the game. The actual PNG of the icon triangles and X's and Y's, back buttons even. Now, whether they use that in the future or just keep it in there is actually fine. I mean, like, things like PNGs are very, very low size, so it's not like something they're super invested in. Now, again, we're going to roll back into that 2022 interview where they talk about the UI and how third-party software is something that they're looking to take out of the game and start baking into the game. This could just be a future advanced method of mapping your controller and doesn't necessarily mean that it could be console console support, rather just a console controller support being baked into the game to make sure that you can have the advanced UI that you need without a third-party software. Left bumper and right bumper are going to be toggling your action bars. Anything that you really need right here is going back and forth. You can see your cooldowns going by for X, Y, A, and B. It looks like your D-pad is going to go up and down for a few of your items in there too. This looks like it can actually work out. I don't know why anybody would actually prefer to have a controller over a keyboard and mouse on World of Warcraft on a PC rather than just having the accessibility of a keyboard. But on that note, it's actually really refreshing to see that that's completely possible. I mean, if you look at it, this gameplay is not terrible. It looks like a lot of the stuff that they baked into the game to make sure that the console support would be smooth is actually smooth. I mean, if you look at what's going on here, it looks like he's using that targeting system that we were talking about before, where anything in front of him is going to be highlighted in red and targeted as an enemy. This honestly makes me want to play World of Warcraft even more. I almost kind of want to experience what World of Warcraft would be on a controller, because I do kind of prefer like RPG games on controllers sometimes, just because I like to lean back and kind of relax a little bit. There's no need to sweat too much. But on World of Warcraft, that is a completely different environment, especially once you hit max level and you start raiding. There's nothing really relaxing about that game at all. What we're looking at right now is actually a third-party UI integration with software that Blizzard was talking about attempting to get rid of. In this case, if we do have controller support, I'd imagine that they're probably going to in the future find something that mimics this or works, if not better than this, especially if they're going to be looking to port this into console and asking console players to begin playing this game. It's kind of a big ask. I mean, if you're going to ask a console player that has never played a World of Warcraft game a day in their life to go ahead and start on level 1, part of me hopes that console players start off without retail and they start off in classic or like a more simplified world, so they get introduced to the lore and they get introduced to the mechanics in a much more simplified version. And I mean that in like the least pretentious and least gatekeepy way, if that's even a word. But starting from the very beginning instead of starting in like Dragonflight or one of these trios of expansions might actually really help somebody out that's on console that really needs to know the base mechanics of the game, understand the lore, and understand really the base concepts of what you should be doing to build your character and interact with other players, NPCs, and even quests. I'm wondering what they're going to be doing with the subscription, if it's going to be baked into the Game Pass, or you have like a Game Pass Ultimate that also includes a World of Warcraft subscription, which would actually be pretty cool. I mean, like, for a World of Warcraft subscription, you only really get World of Warcraft. So if they bake it into the Game Pass and you also get a whole library of games on top of a World of Warcraft subscription and you can play it on console, I think that would be one of the fattest dubs in the world coming from Blizzard. Like, I couldn't imagine Blizzard making a bigger win than that in the next 5 years. Could you just imagine just being like, yeah, I have an Xbox, which means I could play World of Warcraft and like 70 other rotating games that are also under the Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda library. Xbox would be up so big, it would be undeniable. I don't know if like having a subscription on top of a subscription is something that anybody would ever bite on. I mean, I couldn't imagine paying for an Xbox, then paying for Xbox Live, then also paying for a World of Warcraft subscription and being like, okay, yeah, this is totally worth my $50 or $60 a month. Meanwhile, we're in a goddamn recession. Not going to work out that way, especially with people revolting over things like Netflix and Paramount and Hulu upgrading their subscriptions from like $10 to $15 in the last few years. It just seems as if I don't think people would bite on that. I would even venture to say that getting the RuneScape generation, which is like pretty much a couple years younger than me, involved in World of Warcraft because it's accessible on console now would be a major win, like huge. So I'm embracing this with open arms. I'm seeing that a lot of the tone has changed from Blizzard Activision, and it's obviously because it's now Microsoft Blizzard Activision. But regardless, I'm really hype. If you're hype, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that stuff. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.